Well, he was always a busy guy, but Mike Portnoy is at it again. Yeah, now whenever he was in Dream Theater, he was a member of a lot of side projects and side ventures as well, notably with a lot of members of the progressive community. Ever since his departure from Avenged Sevenfold, he's been a part of just bands in general. Portnoy was in, of course, Adrenaline Mob, that had an album and an album full of covers. Flying Colors was the second group that has released an album thus far, and now here's the third one. The Winery Dogs, with two members that were formerly a part of Mr. Big. You remember Mr. Big? If not, this is actually a pretty cool time to pause this video and look up Mr. Big if you don't know who they are, because they did have a pretty major hit in the early stages of the 1990s. It was pretty cool. But the Winery Dogs. Somewhere on the outskirts of hard rock and progressive rock, there's kind of this little medium, this little go-between that's really just, you can't call it progressive hard rock, you can't call it prog rock, you should just call it hard rock, really. Even though it has a little bit of prog rock influence in little minor locations, that's probably the best way that you can really describe what the Winery Dogs sounds like. Now, throughout this 13-track album, we see an exhibition of tremendous hard rock songwriting. I really like where the songwriting went on this. I really love the vocals. They're very passionate. There's a lot of element behind them. And I love the fact that there is enough variety on this album, enough change of pace, and enough kind of little tweaking, experimenting, and having fun on this release, where it doesn't seem as though it's a very high-profile, high-stress project that Portnoy has taken on with these two individuals. Instead, it's something that they've kind of gone into the studio, they've kind of channeled in some of the, emotion and stuff from having been rock stars or having been on the road or just, in the music business in general for decades at this point in time for all three of these individuals, and just really channeled them into some really solid hard rock material. Now, is this an album that's necessarily going to take your breath away? You're going to listen to this and immediately you're going to think to yourself, this is the best album of the year, this is one that is deserving of all accolades and things like that? Well, no. This is just a really solid hard rock release. Unlike the Deep Purple album, which came out earlier, Now What, which is really just a kind of a game changer and one that really took a lot of people by surprise and how solid it was and how it seemed to really have a lot of focus to it. This one has that same focus, but it's in a different way. It's kind of just in a very relaxed format. Now, just because it's relaxed, though, doesn't mean that there is some emotion behind it. Songs like I'm No Angel really prove that. It has all the conventional potential to be a single on this album, and it's definitely one that I feel would be a strong candidate. It would do very, very well on classic rock and modern rock radio, more so on the classic rock side because it really tailors more to that audience. But then you take a look at a song such as You Saved Me, which is dedicated to Mike Portnoy's wife. It's a song that he wrote for her. And this is another one that you could also see perhaps crossing and bridging that gap and getting itself onto the radio. And I think that with this song in particular, it would be classic rock radio once again. And it may also kind of cross over into more of like an adult contemporary or just, a kind of a mainstream rock channel as well. It's one of those things where back in the 1990s there were a lot of songs from rock albums and rock music on your conventional popular radio, mainly because that was something that was really, really big at the time and something that was a huge movement. There was a time period actually in the middle part of the 1990s prior to the release of Hanson Zoom Bop and the Spice Girls and things like that, where radio was really, really dominated in many, many aspects by both rock and, some elements of pop. And this is a song that if we kind of turn back the clock to 1994, 1995, it would fit right in. Now, then there's a song such as The Dying, which is a 6-minute long epic track on the album that really showcases the prog side along with the hard rock side. And this is the song that really, for me, is the real center point. It's the one that really showcases what this band truly can be capable of songwriting-wise, because this one shows a lot of dynamic qualities. It's, really, really exhibiting a passionate songwriting tact, and I really, really like the fact that this is one of the tracks. It's not the final track. It's not the experimentative track on the release, but it really kind of reminds me a lot of what, once again, conventional rock acts did in the 1990s and the first part of the 2000s One that really strikes me is off of The Moon in Antarctica by Modest Mouse, where like the track before the last track is like your lengthy track that really, tells the biggest story, is really the big center point of the album, even though it's right there at the end. But it's also one that's just vastly creative. You're kind of pulling out all the stops. That's exactly what the Winery Dogs did with this song. They pulled out all the spots, and they kind of showed all of their cards, and there you go. We have The Dying, which is just a tremendous song, one of the best on this album. Really, this is not an album to sleep on. This is not one that you should kind of just say, oh, it's another Mike Portnoy project, and it's a little bit more hard rock. I'm not really all that interested in that. I'm a metal fan. You know that. You guys subscribe to this channel because I'm a metal fan. I love this album. This album was very, very good to work to for a couple of days last week. It's nice to relax to. It's one that's awesome to drive to. A lot of people are going to enjoy this record for what it is, not just because it's Mike Portnoy and two members of Mr. Big, though I'm sure for some individuals that haven't gotten to sample anything on the album or anything like that, who just happen to perchance upon it, that may, that may actually tailor in on whether or not they decide to pick it up or not. However, whenever you listen to this album just as a bona fide, hard rock album, whenever you just listen to it, ignoring who is inside of it, who is the members of the band, it's very well constructed. It's very well done. Mike Portnoy's drumming is probably his best ever since he left A7X. So, this is one not to sleep on, folks. This is one to check out. I know some of you hardcore metal fans probably won't dig it, but those of you who don't necessarily have the metal directly up your ass will enjoy this. Check it out. I highly recommend it. I'd probably give this an 8 out of 10. Because it's one of those things where I could give it 4, but I can't go as high as 5. It's a damn solid release, but like I said, it isn't going to catch anyone's world on fire. It's not going to be the top 20, the top #1 album on the top 25 list. But still, regardless of all that, it's one that should be listened to.